views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
At first, you may associate them with the sounds of steel band and carnival costumes. But for over a quarter century, residents of Brooklyn have relied on the Sesame Flyers International organization for many year-round programs that preserve culture, tradition, and values of the West Indies. They're New York's largest Caribbean not-for-profit, and they're currently celebrating 36 years of community service. They'll tell their story coming up here on this edition of Perspectives with yours truly, Daren Jaime.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
What's on your mind? What's on your mind?
Let 'em know. Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective with shines of light. Cause it might make a difference in someone else's life.
Make a difference.
What's your perspective?
Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
What's your perspective?
And hello, welcome to another edition of Perspectives. I am Daren Jaime, and of course, we thank you for watching. As always, you can watch Perspectives every week here on BronxNet's Channel 67. If you have Verizon Files, you can join us on Channel 33 or check us out on the web at bronxnet.org. And of course, if you want some old episodes, go to the website and you can be able to see some of our old, very special guests, as we've been having some great guests here on Perspectives in the year 2019. Well, coming up on this edition of Perspectives, they are the 13-time champions of the Brooklyn Labor Day Carnival Band of the Year competition. They're New York's largest Caribbean nonprofit, and they're currently celebrating 36 years of community service. In June is National Caribbean American Heritage Month, and as well as celebrating the contributions, I'm pleased to be joined by the Executive Director of Sesame Flyers, Mr. Curtis Nelson. Good to have you.
Nice to be here, Daren. Nice to be here.
Good to have you. Good to have you. Well, as I said at the beginning of the show, I said, you guys are 13-time champions. Brooklyn Labor Day Carnival Band of the Year. Got to ask the question, first off, how do you keep it going and how do you keep winning?
Well, I mean, we actually don't compete anymore. But we have a legacy of just being the best. And so those 13 years, there were 12 were consecutive. We just strive for being the best. I mean, we want to be a cut above. And so we run an operation a little bit different than everybody else. We're very fortunate. Most folks know us for Labor Day and costumes, but we actually run a year-round operation at Sesame Flyers. We didn't get to be funded by the city as the largest Caribbean organization for no reason. We've been doing it, putting in the time, volunteering before we were able to get funding from the city. So we pretty much organized Sesame Flyers as a year-round operation. So we had a little bit of benefit, to have an infrastructure in place. So that's how we did it.
And you talk about, being funded by the city, but you go from a place of being a not-for-profit with no funds and volunteers to a place now that you are funded. And this year you're working with more than 600 kids and helping 600 kids, get summer youth jobs. That's a big and a heavy accomplishment.
Well, it's been a journey, Daren. It's been a real journey to get there. Certainly, the organization started off as a club. It started out as a volunteer organization. And a lot of people ask, where'd you get the name Sesame Flyers from? So let me tell you that story.
Yeah.
Sesame Flyers was founded actually by our founder, Joseph Charles. He was a Trinidadian, and he lived down the block from the street where all the kids used to play, and they nicknamed the street Sesame Street. This is back in the late 60s, early 70s, and the kids used to play on the street, so they nicknamed the street Sesame Street. When the founder, Joseph Charles, and his family migrated to the United States, they wanted to recreate a place where the kids could play, but at the same time, don't forget their heritage. And so they founded Sesame Street Flyers in 1983, but because Sesame Street was already an incorporated name, they had to drop the street. And the Flyers was because the founders and their family flew back and forth between Trinidad and the United States, especially around carnival time. And so that's how the name came to be, Sesame Flyers International.
And from then, the work has continued and the body of work has continued in a major kind of way, provide community service and help the young people. Talk to me about now, the programs you have and what's going on.
Well, now, as you mentioned before, one of the things that we're doing now that's like a capstone in our accomplishments is we have an opportunity right now to provide 600 jobs for summer youth. We wrote a grant for it through the Department of Community Development, Youth and Community Development, which is an agency run by the City of New York. It was a request for proposals they put out for nonprofits to be able to provide some youth employment jobs. It was an initiative by the Mayor de Blasio and championed by our former City Councilman Jemani Williams to provide more jobs for kids. Because it's an opportunity for kids to not only get off the streets, but get their first experience at work. And for some of these kids, it's a life-changing experience when they get a chance to be in a work environment, be productive, earn some money, and be independent and learn how they can be constructive adults. And so, matter of fact, we have some kids who work with us, 20 years later, 30 years later, no, not 30 years, but 20 years later, that they're still working with us now. But their first experience was working with summer youth. So that's pretty much one of the major programs that we have right now. And it gets to be challenging as well, too, because the way in which these programs are funded, the city relies on nonprofits to run programs like this because, we're invested in it. Right. And they wouldn't be able to do it themselves if, it may cost them a lot more money if they actually had to do it themselves because the city's, I guess internal bureaucracy and the way they hire and the way they provide services, it usually costs more. So nonprofits, they benefit from getting contracts from the city because we have skin in the game. We have a commitment to provide services to the community already. So we have an investment. And so even though it may cost us, somewhat to provide and support these contracts, it's worthwhile. Yeah. As a matter of fact, for every dollar we have to spend to run programs like this, we're only going to get 80 cents from the city. They expect us, to raise or
come up with.
Yeah, 20%, that's skin in the game.
Yeah, because, I think a lot of times the conversation is, okay, yeah, we can just get a grant, we can work out, but grants are not always be all to end all. And if anybody knows anything about state grants, there's a lot of work that has to go into filling out for state grants and being qualified for a state grant. But then also secondly, just the matching part, as you talk about, because as a community service agency, there's a certain amount of fundraising you got to do to help you do what you do.
Oh yes, I mean, and that's the myth, that I'm trying to dispel at this point because you're correct. The expectation is that that the city funds you. Why are you asking for money?
Right.
What do you mean? You're getting money from the city. But it's a myth because there is an expectation that we have to raise funds, and that's what they call capacity. Do you have the capacity to run programs? And that's part of the things in which they evaluate in when they give out these grants and these contracts, that agencies have an ability to match funds. They don't call it matching funds. They call it capacity. Do you have the capacity? Because there's infrastructure that you have to have in place that they're not going to pay for. They're going to pay for programs, but they may not pay for your advertisement. They may not pay for your accounting system, or your accountants, or your administration per se, or your attorney fees. There's a lot of things that need to be reviewed, contracts in particular, by attorneys. How do you pay for that? Those are the things that you have to have in place that programs don't pay for. So that's the myth. But the larger the contract, the more you have to raise, the more infrastructure you have to have in place, the more management systems and that you have to have in place. And it seems like nobody wants to pay for those things. But if you don't have them, program's not going to work.
You're in trouble.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. We'll continue with our conversation with Curtis when we return right here. Take a quick break on Perspectives. We'll be right back in a few.
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made this vacation happen.
Double points with every purchase?
Cleverly merging promotions,
I love it.
cross-referencing travel sites, and booking all your flights with those.
Vouchers. I got us bumped.
They were like, oh, but now they're like, aloha. You aced this vacation. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
I can't change, even if I tried, even if I wanted
And we are back here on Perspectives. Daren Jaime here with you, and our guest is Studio Curtis Nelson, Director of Sesame Flyers International, and glad to have him share a little bit about what a community-based organization does, a not-for-profit, right? There's a whole lot of work that goes on in the not-for-profit world, and some people think that not-for-profits just have it made, but I'm sure if you spend any time with Curtis, he'll tell you it's a whole lot of work on a day-to-day basis.
It certainly is, Daren, and it's pioneering work, and, because we serve pretty much a Caribbean community. You know, I guess I was born in Trinidad, and so part of my passion is to work within the community. And East Flatbush, Canarsie, where we're primarily based, our headquarters is on Church Avenue in the Mecca, you know, of the Caribbean in New York, actually in Brooklyn, New York. And so our population that we serve is primarily, you know, folks from Trinidad, from Jamaica, from Haiti, from Puerto Rico, and all the islands. And so we have a responsibility, you know, to make sure that we represent and be culturally sensitive, you know, to their needs. And so we have had to work within that niche, right, to provide services and programs that folks really identify with. I remember when I was first tasked with building the first community center, which is a beacon school that we got the fortune to operate. The proposal was a stack of papers this thick. I was an empty room and said, put together a community center. And the proposal was written by an agency that was outside the community. And in the proposal were activities like ballet and an orchestra. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you know, but it didn't reflect, you know, the population, the community. So I had to rewrite it, you know, and bring folks on. So that's where the steel pan came in. You know, I taught steel pan and Afro-Caribbean dance. You know, those are the activities that the community related to. Soccer, you know, I mean, we do have basketball. So right now, we run community centers, school-based community centers. They're called beacons. Those are the major hubs in 2 schools, one in Canarsie and one in East Flatbush. And they are scheduled with a whole host, an array of community programs. We have GED programs, we have computer programs, we have after-school, evening and weekend programs, homework tutorial. Of course, we have steel pan, we have dance, Afro-Caribbean dance, soca dance, healing around, exercising, aerobics, you know, so a whole plethora of different type of activities that community can relate to.
So when we talk about the community, Caribbean Heritage Month, of course, is this month, and June is the month. A couple things. Number one is, tell me you got something special happening, right? Your celebration. So talk about that.
Well, Caribbean Heritage Month is very special to us, obviously. A lot of folks look to us to produce something.
Do something.
Yeah. So this Saturday, actually, we have a cultural gala. this is an opportunity for us to raise funds, working with our culture. And so this Saturday we're going to be on Marine Park Golf Course, and we're going to be hosting our cultural gala, and we are going to be revealing our costumes for Labor Day 2019 on Eastern Parkway. And so we built a show around it. It's something relatively new. We've had galas before, but we never had a cultural gala in celebration of Caribbean Heritage Month. And so we have soca artists, we have calypso artists, we have steel pan, we have moko jumbies, we have limbo dances, we have fire, we have a whole host of cultural performances, and of course the highlight is our costumes, which a lot of folks know us for. We didn't get to be 13-time winners without having beautiful, beautiful.
I asked you that from the start. How do you get there? 13. I wanted to know right off the rip. Like, how do you get to 13?
Well, I mean, organization, that's what it was. That's what I was alluding to before. We have a systematic way in which we organize ourselves. And so we're prepared, we're prepared year-round to put on a production, and that's what it is. So this cultural gala we have is not just what folks, in the mass world would think of as a band launch, where we're just launching, a band theme for Labor Day, but it's a production. And so we treat it as that, and we have, stage manager and, and a stage and have production and lights and cameras and the whole works behind it, because, it's important for us to be able to take hold of the images that folks see of us. So it's important, especially when it comes around Labor Day and costumes, because, some of the costumes we have are, provocative, I mean, they're for lack of a better word, sexy.
Right.
And so, we have to make sure that the images that we portray of ourselves are one that's seen in a positive way.
So, just got a little bit, maybe like 2 minutes before the segment's over, I want to ask you about being germane to the Caribbean community. What do you find to be some of the greatest needs within the Caribbean community that maybe everybody else doesn't understand that, what's going on?
Well, what is important that we get across is that we are an economic engine, and we don't always recognize that. The city doesn't recognize it. The corporations sometimes don't recognize that too. Getting sponsorship for what we do is a real challenge. Getting folks to invest in a culture, especially our culture, is a challenge. I mean, no one thinks twice about investing in the Met or investing in tennis. The corporations flock to those things. You will see, big major corporations, sponsored, throughout those events. But when it comes to Labor Day, when it comes to our culture, it's a challenge to get the corporations to see, that it's worthwhile investment. However, they do rely on our community as consumers, and so they will, pretty much just feel that it's okay not to have to put back in the community, but because they're going to buy anyway.
Right.
So we have to re-educate, our own people, and we have to kind of reach out to these corporations, with a better strategy, so that they can recognize that we are economic engine as well too, and we're worth the investment. So that you can see that the major corporations, the Sprints and the Verizons, be a part of the sponsorship of our Caribbean culture.
Curtis Nelson, our guest here in the studio, taking a quick break. We got more show. You just stay with us. We're coming right back right after this.
Did you know kids who play outdoors have healthier lungs?
Totally.
I did. Did you know that boys that play with dolls make better husbands?
My son has lots of dolls.
But did you know terry cloth diapers breathe better?
I did.
It's totally true.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that strollers have the right of way on the sidewalk?
Yes.
Yep, I did. Did you guys
Did you know that kids who eat breakfast have higher GPAs?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. That's actually what I was going to say.
Did you know babies should never touch silver? It's really bad for them.
I knew that.
Did you guys know that statistically friendly kids have more friends?
Yeah.
That's obvious.
Did you know most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not? Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right seat at the right age and size. Visit safercar.gov/the right seat to make sure your child is protected.
I'm putting that on my blog.
I just put it in mine.
And continue our conversation talking about the Sesame Flyers. And we talked in the beginning of the show about, being that organization as a not-for-profit doing fundraising. And there's a great work, and there's also a great partnership that goes on in trying to help you to raise the funds that you need to be able to actually do what you do. You talked about all the great work, but we know it's not driven without money.
Yeah, absolutely. Yesterday, we had the great fortune of being an organization that was awarded by the controller. We had the controller's award yesterday, and what he called the money proclamation. Now, the controller is the watchdog of the city of New York investments and all his contracts. So we don't get any money until he signs off on it. So all our contracts have to go through his office. And so for him to give us that stamp of approval that, we could be recognized and awarded by his office, was a real feather in our cap because it says that we're doing the right things. We're doing the right things to make sure that the money does flow. But we weren't always so fortunate, and before the contracts and even during the contracts, some of the fundraising challenges we used to throw fundraisers, and fundraisers, was from the community. We had parties, we had events and boat rides and those type of things. But the risks involved, in throwing those type of, you have to put out, money to rent boats and rent places and ticket sales, and sometimes they weren't also so successful. And some of the promoters and some of the folks that we work with, some of the partners that we work with, they didn't see it the nonprofit way. That was money in their pocket. They didn't always see the give back. So their initiative was a little bit different. Their motive was a little bit different for making money. We were making money so that we can fund our programs. If we didn't match, we lose. If we don't put up that dollar, that 20 cents of that dollar, we owe someone 20 cents because the city's only paying 80 cents. So if we don't find that 20 cents, we owe somebody because it's really costing us $1. So we've had some challenges, we had some fun losers, plenty of those.
Right.
So we changed the way in which we approach raising funds, and that's how we get to a gala again. A gala is something that folks, corporations understand is a fundraiser. It's just not a money maker to make money to put in your pocket. It's something in which we can invite corporations for sponsors. We can invite other city agencies to provide support services so that we can train our dancers to perform. We can get costumes that that are in the program. As a matter of fact, last year for Labor Day, we had what we call our vision dances. Our vision dancers portrayed our costumes in a very different way. They were choreographed, and they were choreographed by 8 different soca dance instructors, as opposed to just folks dancing any kind of way. So we had 8 different routines with about 20 or 30 different dancers in each segment, performing these different routines. And we performed the routines along the parkway, not just once in front of the judges, but along the parkway, so everybody got a chance to see the dancing. So that's how we do it. So this Saturday, again, we are having our gala, in the spirit of understanding that the community has to give, corporations have to give, and the city has to give in order for us to continue running programs and services the way that we do.
Yeah, so if people want to get connected to you, what do they do?
Well, there's many ways. There is the traditional, telephone, 718-693-0500. That's our main number. Our headquarters is on Church Avenue. We're fortunate to own our building. As a matter of fact, we're looking to renovate our building next year. And then there's our website, which is www.sesameflyers.org, and there you could have, you could see all the things that we do year round. And then for the folks who are a little bit want to see things much faster, we have our Instagram, which we have various accounts. We have a Sesame Flyers Instagram, and then we have the one that is the most active, which is the Sesame Carnival Instagram. And for the folks who want to know things day to day, hour to hour, I think we post 3 times a day. And then we send out email blasts. We have a newsletter that is published once a month, in which we update our supporters on the things that we do.
Make sure you get connected now. A lot going on, and of course, as talk about Labor Day. I mean, that's the big day. Before we get out of here, how much has Labor Day actually infused all that you do?
Well, I mean, we are fortunate and unique in that it is our cultural signature that makes us different. There's a lot of nonprofits that run after school and evening programs, to the city, but we do it with culture in mind. We do it with a cultural core. We believe that young people who relate to their heritage have a better sense of self-esteem, and they transfer that confidence in everything that they do. So culture is the way in which we do it. We make sure that these young people have a sense of pride of who they are because of their ancestry and where they're from. So it's important for us to infuse culture in all our acts after school and evening and weekend programs. So that's how the Labor Day thing, is involved, because when they see Sesame Flyers come down the Parkway in costume, and it's a festive, time. And the Caribbean people are happy people, and so that's a time in which we get a chance to show the pageantry of costuming. So the costumes are grand, and some of the costumes are, less grand but more detailed. But it's something that folks want to understand. Well, how do I do that? And the myth is that you have to be in a special group. No, you just have to go to our website or come to our doors, 3510 Church Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, and walk into what we call our mass camp, where our costumes are displayed during the summertime. And just pick out a costume and say, I want to wear this for Labor Day, and that's pretty much it.
Wow. It's easy as that. Just go there, pick it out, say you want to wear it, talk to Curtis. Great talking to you.
Daren, it's great talking to you. Thanks for having me on your show.
Keep up the great work.
All right.
Curtis Nelson, Sesame Flyers. Listen, great organization in Brooklyn. Check them out. They're around year-round, but definitely around the Labor Day time, they make their presence felt. For all of us here on the Center of Perspectives, I am Daren Jaime. Thank you for watching. Until next time we meet, stay safe, share your perspective with somebody else. It just might make a difference in somebody else's life. Take care.
What's your perspective? Let them know.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
Express what's on your mind. What's on your mind?
Let 'em know. Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions, cause in the